Otis Air Force Base in Massachusetts, 2 F-15 fighter pilots, codenamed Lieutenant Colonel Duff and Major Nasty, get orders to respond.
He said, "It's Otis Tower, something about a hijacking." He said, "This looks like the real thing."
Duff came in and said that there was a possible hijacking.
The fighter pilots are airborne and headed south within minutes. Around this time, United Flight 175 has just reached its cruising altitude.
Flight attendants may have started beverage service. At that point, the flight is fairly normal as far as the passengers are concerned.
I had asked United 175 how the weather was, and he told me he could see for miles and miles and miles. And I told him, I said, I want you to look at your 1, 2 o'clock and look at about 29,000 feet and tell me if you see an American 767. And he came back. He said, yeah, I see him out there. He's southbound, and he's about that altitude, 29,000 feet. Well, I turned United. I said, United 175, turn 30 degrees to the right. I want to make sure I keep you away from this aircraft.
For any of us at any time and any part of airspace to be told, stay out of the way of another jetliner, what in the world is going on? That would raise all sorts of alarms in the minds of the pilots.
At 8:41 a.m., Hartling hands Flight 175 off to New York's Air Traffic Control Center, where controller Dave Batiglia takes over. Batiglia has been directing planes for more than 20 years.
United 175 now comes up on my frequency, and now I am tracking him. And his very first words are, "We heard the threatening transmissions from American 11."
That would be 175's last transmission with the ground. The pilots of 175 have no idea that they are just moments away from the same fate.
We're looking for American 11. He is still flying, but he is heading southeastbound right towards New York City. And as he gets close to the city, we're wondering if he was going to be landing at one of the airports.
One of my fellow controllers on the other side of the room, I heard him say, that airplane's going to hit the World Trade Center.
At 8:46 a.m., American 11 suddenly disappears from radar.
I heard this sound that was a shriek and a roar. It was nothing I'd ever heard, certainly in Manhattan before. It sounded like a missile.
American 11 hit high up in the North Tower, around the 93rd floor, going a pretty astonishing rate of speed, almost 500 miles an hour. Obviously, people on board the plane and probably hundreds on the floors that were impacted were killed instantly.
Right after American 11's target disappears, numerous airplanes and pilots now are asking me, what is going on in Lower Manhattan? There is heavy smoke coming out of one of the towers of the Trade Center.
Everybody looked up at the same time. I remember a lot of people immediately running up the street below.
As chaos erupts on the ground, terror is unfolding in the skies.
And he said, Mom, I'm on a hijacked plane, and it doesn't look good.
The World Trade Center, tower number 1 is on fire. The whole outside of the building was just a huge explosion. Engine 1 out, World Trade Center, 1060. Send every available ambulance, everything you got to the World Trade Center now. Just so you know, this is confirmed. This is confirmed.
Most people thought, what a horrible accident. Some people thought it was a helicopter who hit the towers. Some people thought it was a small plane. It was, I think, almost inconceivable to people that it was a jumbo airliner on a transcontinental flight.
You know, one of the controllers come back and said, the airplane hit the World Trade Center. And then it started, at that particular time, things started to unravel.
We have a number of floors on fire. It looked like the plane was aiming towards the building. It looked like it was intentional. Inform all units going into the box. It could be a terrorist attack.
sometime between the last transmission from the pilot at 175 at 8:42 and when American 11 impacted the tower at 8:46, the attack began aboard United 175.
Bonnie Hamid and El Sherry, as soon as the light went out, the seatbelt sign went off, they were up and in the cockpit before anybody knew what was going on.
The two muscle hijackers stormed the cockpit, somehow gained entry, stabbed the flight attendant. There are reports from 175 that occurred, and then assaulted the pilot and co-pilot.
Somebody bursting into the cockpit, your first reaction is not going to be take off the seatbelt, turn around and lunge at them. Your first reaction is going to be to turn around and say, what are you doing here? Who are you?
The pilots are probably dead or at least incapacitated within minutes. And at that point, Marwan Al-Shehi would have gone into the cockpit and taken control of the flight.
The other two guys, the Ghamdis, push all the rest of the passengers and crew. Those were still alive. Apparently one of the flight crew was also slaughtered in the aisle. Pushed them back to the back of the aircraft. Shehi takes over the plane.
At 8:47 a.m., United 175 is 50 miles northwest of New York City when its transponder code is suddenly changed.
As I look up, I notice that United 175's code has changed. I just turned around and radioed the pilot. My exact words were, United 175, recycle transponder squawk, in the code that he was supposed to be on. There was no response. At the time, still not a thing to be worried about.
Hijacker Al-Shehi obviously intended to turn off that transponder, but because he just changed codes and didn't turn it off, he still left the controllers with a very clear indication of the normal return from an aircraft that was squawking, that's what we call it, with the altitude.
People on the plane know something's gone wrong. Obviously, there's blood in the aisle. They're dead people. And some of them start calling their loved ones.
At 8:52 a.m., Peter Hansen calls his parents from an airphone in the back of the plane.
The phone rang. I answered it. And Peter said, Dad, the plane is being hijacked. And at first I thought to myself, he must be joking. Maybe he's just trying to fool me. But he said, no, Dad, he said, it's really the plane's being hijacked. He said, I think somebody's been stabbed, and I think the hijackers have taken over the cockpit because the plane is acting funny. He said, would you call United Airlines and let them know? And I said, well, are you okay? He said, yeah, I'm okay. I said, how's Christine? How's Sue? He said, they're okay, Dad. He said, but make the phone call. I said, okay, so I hung up.
At that very moment, a male flight attendant on Flight 175 calls United Airlines, also from the back of the plane. It is believed to be Robert Fangman.
The call went to the maintenance department because they had a certain number they would dial for emergencies, and that's where it would go to. Bob did tell the maintenance man that the plane had been hijacked, the pilots had been stabbed, and the flight attendant had been stabbed.
Now as I'm watching, United 175 makes a hard left-hand turn and starts climbing. Not only did he make a sharp turn, but he also climbed 3,000 feet in a matter of approximately 1 minute, which is a very fast rate of climb. This is something that we have never seen before. And I immediately turned to the manager of the facility and I said, I believe I just lost United 175.
Around 8:52, the fighters that have been scrambled from Otis Air Force Base are airborne, and they're headed over military airspace over the Atlantic Ocean.
So as we're climbing out, we go supersonic on the way, which is kind of non-standard for us and nasty. I even called me in the actuator and said, hey, Duff, you're super. And I said, yeah, I know. Don't worry about it.
We both knew that this was something real. Didn't know how bad it could be, but he just wanted to get there as fast as we could and then sort out the problem.
They know that their job is going to be to roll out behind this hijacker, to stay out of sight of the aircraft. You don't want to scare anybody, and just pull in 5 miles behind them and watch. That's all their orders are going to be.
Around 8:55 a.m., United 175 is now descending from the south over New Jersey. when it has a near collision with a Delta flight.
The controller who was working the pilot of the Delta yells at him, "Take any evasive action necessary. We have an airplane, we don't know what he's doing. Any action at all." This is stuff that's you would only see in the movies.
Jay wasn't a great pilot, but the flight paths that the plane took, and it's kind of all over the place. It's wobbling. Obviously, it was a rocky flight.
One of the things he did say to me was that the plane was flying very erratically and that people were very ill. They were throwing up and so forth.
At 8:59 a.m., Flight 175 passenger Brian Sweeney tries to call his wife Julie on an airphone from row 32. He leaves this message for her on the answering machine.
Jules, this is Brian. Listen, on an airplane that's been hijacked, and things will go well. I'm looking good. I just want you to know I absolutely love you. I want you to do good. So have a good time. Same to my parents and everybody. And I just totally love you, and I'll see you later, Chester. Hi, babe. Hope I call you.
The phone started ringing. I said hello, and I heard, "Mom, this is Brian." And he sounded somewhat subdued. And I said, "Hey, Brian, what's up?" And he said, "Mom, I'm on a hijacked plane, and it doesn't look good." He started to tell me, he said, "I don't know who these people are, and if they come, I may have to hang up right away."
With his training, I think there was no question in his mind that it was a terrorist attack and that he was going to die. Otherwise, he would have never picked up the phone and worried us for no reason.
Well, knowing Bob, I feel that he was doing his job, taking care of the people, making sure they were calm, and probably not giving much thought to himself at all.
The United 175, the hijackers were heading towards the city. We were counting down the altitudes, and they were descending right at the end at 10,000 feet per minute. That is absolutely unheard of for a commercial jet. It is unbelievable for the passengers in the back to withstand that type of force as they're descending. They're actually nosing the airplane down and doing it what I would call a power dive.
At 9:01 a.m., United 175 is hurtling at more than 400 miles per hour toward the Statue of Liberty and New York Harbor. A manager at New York Center calls the FAA's command center in Herndon, Virginia.
Yeah, several situations going on here. It's escalating big time. And we need to get the military involved with this. We're involved with something else. We have other aircraft that may have a similar situation going on here.
Toyota, your Camry connection. Burdick is your Toyota truck headquarters with 3.9% APR plus 2,000 off select Tacomas. Over 300 Toyotas, including the new Yaris and Prius. A smart way to keep moving forward. Your Camry connection. Burdick Toyota in North Syracuse. Check out driversvillage.com for more.
At 9:01 a.m., as United 175 continues its rapid descent into lower Manhattan, New York Center alerts another nearby air traffic facility responsible for low-flying aircraft.
I'm just out at 9,500, 9,000 now. Do you know who he is? We don't know who he is. We're just picking him up now. All right, heads up, man. It looks like another one. All right.
As it actually moves in toward the Trade Center, controllers at Newark Airport see it, and it's seen by, well, this is the flight that was seen by the world.
As I'm watching all of this unfold, and especially towards the last minute and a half, I am getting very frightened, scared. The fear was just tremendous.
Peter Hansen calls his father back.
He said, I think that they're planning on crashing this plane into a building, maybe in Chicago or someplace like that. And I said, no, they don't do that, Peter. You know, they land and they demand ransom and so forth. He said, I don't think so, Dad. He said, but don't worry about it. He said, because don't worry about it, because if it happens, it'll be quick.